This year I'm sharing our complete spring planting schedule with you, step by step. And even though it's only March 11th, and our last frost date is almost 7 weeks away, our backyard garden is already half planted. Cool weather crops are growing in the hoop house, cold frames, and low tunnels, and edible perennials are growing in much of the rest of the garden. But I haven't started many of our summer crops yet. That will change today when I plant tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. We start our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants 6 to 7 weeks before our last frost date. If you're not sure what your last frost date is, you can easily find it online. For best results, we start these heat-loving crops indoors in our grow room. But this year, as an experiment, I'll start some of the same tomatoes I'm starting indoors here in this cold frame, and we'll compare the results to see how they do. Let's start first with our indoor planting. When talking about how we grow indoors, a good place to start is with our seed starting mix. Though I change the mix from year to year, one thing that remains constant is our use of vermicompost from our indoor worm bins. This year I'm using a mix that's 5 parts coconut coir, 4 parts perlite, and 3 parts vermicompost. This gives us a mix that is 25% vermicompost. With that much vermicompost, our plants get all the nutrients they need, and we never have to use additional fertilizers. To minimize uppotting, I like to start tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants in these relatively large, repurposed 24-ounce food containers, which have holes cut in the bottom for drainage. If we have a cold spring and transplanting is delayed, I may have to uppot to 1-gallon containers before planting out, but if it's warm, I'll transplant earlier and may not have to uppot at all. I'm planting many different tomato varieties this year and a total of 30 plants. Some of our favorite varieties that we're growing this year include Sweet Millions, Black Vernissage, Pink Boar, Blueberries Tomatoes, Organic Sweetie, Black Cherry, Cherokee Purple, and Big Rainbow. Please see a list of all the tomato varieties we're growing in the description below. To plant tomatoes, I fill the pots up about halfway. Plant a few seeds in each pot and cover them with about 1/4 inch of soil. As the plants grow, I'll trim the lower leaves and fill the rest of the pot with soil. The tomatoes will grow new roots along their stems as they're covered with soil. This will give the plants more support as they grow tall and may help me avoid having to uppot. Now let's plant peppers. This year we're growing these varieties: Jimmy Nardello, New Mexico Joe E. Parker, Criolla Sella, chocolate peppers, jalapeno, and cayenne. I start by filling the pots nearly to the top with potting mix. I then plant a few seeds in each pot and cover them with about 1/4 inch of soil. I'll finish planting today with 4 eggplant varieties: Black Beauty, Rosa Bianca, Japanese White Egg, and Long Purple. I plant eggplants exactly like I planted the peppers. I fill the containers close to the top, drop a few seeds in each container, and cover them with 1/4 inch of soil. Now that all the seeds are planted, let's talk about lights, watering, and germination temperatures. Before the seeds germinate, I'll top water as shown here. After they germinate, I'll bottom water by adding about 1/4 inch of water to the bottom of the trays. I'll wait for the soil surface to be dry before watering again. Initially, I place the pots very close to the lights, which will be on 14 hours a day. As the plants grow, I'll adjust the lights to keep them a couple inches above the plants. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants germinate best when the soil temperature is around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I know from experience that this light fixture will generate enough heat to warm the soil enough that these crops will germinate. But this light is going to need a little help. Rather than use heat mats, I cover the light with an inexpensive mylar blanket. The blanket will hold in enough heat to raise the soil temperature for germination to take place. After the seeds germinate, I'll remove the blanket. One final point on the seeds I just started. You may recall that I planted a few seeds in each pot. This will hopefully ensure that at least 1 seed germinates in each pot. If more than 1 seed germinates, I'll select the healthiest plant in each pot and snip the other ones. I'll do this after the plants develop their first true leaves. Now let's head outside to plant tomatoes in a cold frame for the experiment I mentioned earlier. Last year I attempted to start some tomatoes outside in plastic jugs, but that experiment didn't go very well. But what did work well is that some volunteer tomatoes came up in one of our cold frames, and I kept some of the strongest of those plants, and they did very well. I saved some of the seeds from those plants. I'm starting some indoors and some in this cold frame, and we'll compare the results over time. Before planting the tomato seeds, I apply a thin layer of vermicompost to the soil surface. I then plant a few seeds here, and a few more about a foot away. I'll let the healthiest plant in each location grow to maturity. In May, I'll plant out 2 tomatoes that were started indoors from the same seeds, and I'll compare the results over the course of the growing season. Well, that's all for now. I'll be back next week when I plant basil in the grow room and potatoes, carrots, and sugar snap peas outside under cover. I'll see you then. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos on how to grow a lot of food on a little land without spending much or working harder than you have to.